it's Megan and Ajax. If you're returning to my channel, welcome back, and if you are new, welcome aboard. So I'm sure you can probably tell from the intro or reading the title of the video. Today is a Disney trivia video and we are talking about the Aristocats. So I decided to bring in my fluffy little fur buddy here. For anyone who sees my dogs, oh, speak of the devil, running around. I do also have a kitty and he's my kitty best friend. So Ajax was acting a little bit as my Toulouse. We have my little Marie here, and then I found another Disney character that dresses in black to Disney Bound as. So today I am Berlioz. Throwback to my Snow White costume. There's where that ribbon's from. But yeah, so today we are talking about the Aristocats, so I will just hop right in and talk a little bit about the making of the movie. And one thing that I didn't know was it was actually based on a book, which was based on a true story. I didn't think that this was a thing that actually happened, but apparently in 1910 there was a set of Parisian cats who inherited a great amount of wealth, and that story was written by a couple of Toms, written by Tom McGowan and Tom Rowe. So that book was then adapted into the Aristocats, the Disney movie, which when I think of Disney movies that were not based on something else, because most Disney movies are based on some kind of story somewhere along the way, you know, a Grimm's fairy tale or Hans Christian Andersen, some kind of story that has existed. I tried to think of Disney movies that are not based on something like that, and I was like, oh, Aristocats, that can't be based on anything. Guess what, Megan? It is. You were wrong. So it is in fact based on not only a true story, but also a book. It's not a documentary, but, you know, loosely based on something that has actually happened. The production of the Aristocats involved actually 6 of the 9 old men, so there was a lot of them that were actually involved in the process, and one of them was our good friend Wolfgang Wooly Reitherman. We've mentioned him in several other videos. If you haven't checked out my other trivia videos, I'll link them up there and down in the description. Make sure that you check those out if you're interested in Disney history and facts and trivia. But yeah, so he was the director, the producer, he was all up in the Aristocats too, and then there were 5 other of the 9 old men involved in the Aristocats. And as we get closer to present day movies, you're going to obviously see fewer and fewer of those original 9 old men working on the movies, but this is kind of a sweet spot where you're getting a lot of them involved in this one movie, so I think that's really interesting. A lot of people don't think about the Aristocats as like one of the most popular movies. When you ask people to name their favorites, Aristocats is not usually up in the top, but it actually did really well when it premiered. It had a $4 million budget, which is pretty low, I guess, as far as movie budgets go, but when you think about how much money that is, it's still a lot of money. But it actually made back about $35 million worldwide, so it did pretty well. It made all of its money back, and, you know, it earned money on top of that. In most of my other Disney trivia videos, I talk about some firsts that go along with the movie, and, you know, it was the first to do this or the first to do that. Well, this one actually is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk about some lasts. It was the last movie that Walt had any kind of influence on at all. It obviously was not made until quite a few years after his passing, but he did have some influence in the fact that it was planned earlier to be a live action 2-part movie. Yes, they were going to do a live action Aristocats. Now if they try to do that one now with all the remakes in the live action, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it, but yes, it was originally intended to be live action, and Walt said, hey, you know what, I think it'll translate better if it's animated. We should definitely go with animated. And they did, and thank goodness, because I don't know, I like animated better than live action. Some of these live actions are getting a little out there for me. So because it was the last one that he was part of in any way, it was the last one to say a Walt Disney production. After that it would say Walt Disney Studios or something like that. It was not his production because this was the last one that he had any kind of production influence on. Moving on to the fun facts section of my video here. We all know it's my favorite. The first one is, we all know Berlioz and Toulouse and Marie, but there was actually, they planned on having a 4th kitten named Waterloo. I don't know why they decided against Waterloo. I'm not sure why they picked the name Waterloo to begin with. All the others are French names. Waterloo didn't go so well for the French, if I'm remembering my history correctly. But yeah, so they thought that 4 kittens might be a little bit too much, so they toned it down to 3. Thus we have Marie, Toulouse, and Berlioz, and sadly no Waterloo. couple little things that are like, not necessarily trivia, but like goofs almost, in continuity and things like that. So in the scene when George comes in to make up the will at the very beginning, Duchess actually has a very different artistic style, and you look at her and you're like, she doesn't look exactly the same as she does the rest of the movie. And I don't know why that is, but you can definitely tell her nose is darker. She has a more defined outline to her. It's not the normal like sketchy look that the rest of the movie has and that she has for the entire rest of the movie. So it's just interesting to see like just this random pop of like, oh, Duchess looks different, and then she's the same for the rest of the movie. Another little kind of continuity kind of thing. When Edgar is listening to the little pipe on the wall, and he's hearing them talk about the money that is going to be left in her will, and he's like, millions, and you know, he's thinking about all the money that's going to come if he is the inheritor, and he flashes in his eyes dollar signs. They're in France. It would have been a franc. It wouldn't have been an American dollar sign. One more little fun trivia thing about the movie itself is the scene during the Everybody Wants to Be a Cat sequence where Duchess is kind of getting her groove on, she's doing her little dance. That you can see reused later in Robin Hood, and that is Maid Marian. She does the same kind of little dance, and so once again you can see that animators do like to reuse things periodically so that they can get the little shortcuts where they can. So that's just another one of those that you can see when you compare the two side by side. Now, moving on to the voice actors. The actor who played George, Charles Lane, has a pretty interesting story if you are interested in just like reading about the lives of actors. He has had quite a life, and one of the most interesting things that I found about him as I was researching was he was one of the last surviving survivors of the 1906 fire in San Francisco. He was born in San Francisco in 1905, so he technically did live through the Great Fire of 1906 in San Francisco, and he lived to be 102, so he didn't die until 2007. So he was one of the oldest surviving survivors of that particular incident in American history. The character actors that played Berlioz and Marie, that was their only acting credit. Those kids never did anything else. They didn't go on to be adult actors. They never did anything else as child actors. They just were in the Aristocats, and that was kind of it. I believe the young girl who played Marie did have a couple of uncredited things before the Aristocats, but the Aristocats was her only credited acting role, and that was it. Then she just slithered off into obscurity, and I'm not sure what's happened to them since, but they did not pursue acting. One of the most well-known voices that you're going to recognize in the Aristocats is that of Phil Harris, or Abraham DeLacy, Giuseppe Casey, Thomas O'Malley. That is the catchiest. Anyone else, like, I love that song. Everybody Wants to Be a Cat's okay, but like, I love O'Malley's song. Anyway, I digress. But that's Phil Harris. You probably recognize him as Baloo from The Jungle Book and Little John from Robin Hood. And you're going to see a couple of instances where Robin Hood gets brought up, so maybe I'll do that one as one of my next trivia videos. Another easily recognized voice is that of Eva Gabor, who does play Miss Duchess, and she also plays Miss Bianca in The Rescuers. So you can kind of tell her voice is the same. It's a very distinct voice in and of itself, but it's also very, you know, she plays very, very high class ladies. My favorite voice actor in this that you can just barely pick out if you're watching it is the Russian cat in Scat Cat's gang. That is played by Thurl Ravenscroft, and the name may not mean anything to you immediately, but as soon as I tell you what all he has been, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I love him. He's done so many things. So most notably, he's the voice of the Grim Grinning Ghosts, that song, Grim Grinning Ghosts Come Out Through Social. That's him singing. He also sings You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. You know, you've heard that one probably a few times in your life. He was Kirby from The Brave Little Toaster, which people my age probably remember that one, but everyone in the entire world probably knows him as our dear friend Tony the Tiger. Yes, that was him. He did lots of voiceover work for lots of things, and he has a very distinctive rumbly kind of voice, and he just kind of was in the Aristocats just quietly as the Russian cat. He doesn't talk very much, but you can definitely hear it if you pay attention. You can definitely tell, oh yeah, that's definitely Tony the Tiger over there. I mentioned that there were going to be a couple of tie-ins to Robin Hood, and here's another one. The ladies who play Amelia and Abigail Gabble, the geese, those two actresses actually play Maid Marian and Lady Cluck in Robin Hood. So once again, we're tying back in. My last voice actor little fun fact is Paul Winchell is technically in the Aristocats, and you have probably heard his voice. He is the Chinese cat, but his lyrics were actually cut from the soundtrack. They are still in most of the released versions of the movie, but his lyrics were cut from the song Everybody Wants to Be a Cat, because they are not at all politically or any other kind of correct. He says, Shanghai, Hong Kong, ik fu young, fortune cookie, always wrong. But he says it in a very stylized, stereotypical Chinese accent. But that is Paul Winchell, of course, the voice of Tigger. So if you do have a version of that soundtrack that still has his lyrics in there, you can hear that and pick out Tigger. So that is it for my Aristocats Disney history and trivia video. Hope you enjoyed that and getting to see Mr. Ajax at the beginning before he got chased off by all these wild beasties that I live with. So yeah, that's it for this one. If you have any suggestions on any future Disney trivia videos or any other type of video that you'd like to see, let me know those down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, y'all.